Years after Walter White's death, a new generation of chemists stumbles upon his meticulously hidden notes, hoping to replicate his legendary blue meth. But they unleash something far more sinister than a drug, a residue of Heisenberg's shattered psyche, a parasitic consciousness embedded within the crystal structure that begins to consume and transform those who use it, turning them into echoes of Walter White's darkest self. The Legend of Heisenberg was a ghost story whispered in the underworld. A chemistry teacher turned kingpin, a man who had built an empire on the purest meth the world had ever seen, and then vanished in a blaze of bullets and infamy. His blue meth, once a symbol of unparalleled quality, had become a relic of the past, a sought-after commodity, a dangerous myth. 5 years after Walter White's death, a group of ambitious young chemists, students at the University of New Mexico, found themselves drawn to the legend. They were not hardened criminals, but brilliant, restless minds, seduced by the challenge, by the allure of recreating the impossible. They called themselves the Alchemists, a nod to the transformative power of chemistry, and to the man who had become a twisted icon of that power, Heisenberg. Their leader, a sharp, driven woman named Sarah, had become obsessed with Walter White. She saw him not as a monster, but as a genius, a master chemist who had dared to break the rules, to push the boundaries of what was possible. She believed that his blue meth was more than just a drug. It was a masterpiece, a chemical symphony that held secrets waiting to be unlocked. Through a series of clandestine connections, whispers in the dark corners of the internet, and a healthy dose of reckless ambition, the Alchemists managed to acquire something incredibly rare, a fragment of Walter White's original notes. Not the complete formula, not the entire process, but a single, heavily redacted page, filled with cryptic symbols, complex equations, and handwritten annotations in Walt's distinctive, precise script. It was a tantalizing glimpse into the mind of a master, a roadmap to a forbidden kingdom. They set up a clandestine lab in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Albuquerque, the same city where Walter White had built his empire, the same city that still bore the scars of his legacy. They were meticulous, careful, following Walt's notes to the letter, recreating his process with a reverence bordering on religious fervor. But something was off. The ingredients were the same, the equipment was similar, but the result was different. The crystals they produced were blue, yes, but the color was deeper, almost unnaturally vibrant, with a faint internal luminescence that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. And the effects were unlike anything they had ever encountered. The first test subject was a volunteer, a local addict named Marco, who had heard whispers of the new blue and was eager to experience the legend for himself. He took a small dose, inhaling the smoke with a trembling hand. At first, the effects seemed typical: a rush of euphoria, a heightened sense of awareness, a feeling of invincibility. But then, something changed. Marco's eyes widened, his pupils dilating, his face contorting into a mask of something that wasn't quite fear, wasn't quite awe, but a strange mixture of both. He began to speak, but it wasn't his voice. It was a distorted echo of Walter White's, his words laced with a chilling, familiar arrogance. "I am not in danger, Skylar," Marco whispered, his voice a perfect imitation of Heisenberg's infamous line, "I am the danger." The alchemists were stunned. They had expected a potent drug, but they hadn't expected this. This was not just a chemical reaction. This was something else. Something that went beyond the realm of science. Something that touched upon the very essence of identity. of consciousness. This was a possession. This part explores the escalating effects of the new blue meth, the spread of Heisenberg's echo, and the alchemists' growing horror as they realize they've unleashed something they can't control. The story will delve into the psychological effects on the users, turning them into fragmented, distorted versions of Walter White, each embodying a different facet of his personality, his ambition, his ruthlessness, his paranoia, his self-deception. As more people used the new blue meth, the Heisenberg echo began to spread. It wasn't a complete transformation, not a full possession, but a subtle, insidious influence that warped the users' personalities, amplified their darkest impulses, and imprinted upon them fragments of Walter White's consciousness. Some became consumed by ambition, driven by a ruthless desire for power and control, mirroring Walt's own descent into the criminal underworld. They started their own meth operations, using the blue meth as a tool to build their own empires, their actions echoing Heisenberg's own ruthless tactics. Others became consumed by paranoia, seeing enemies everywhere, trusting no one, their minds twisting into a labyrinth of suspicion and fear, reflecting Walt's own constant struggle to stay one step ahead of the law, of his rivals, of his own demons. Still others became consumed by self-deception, justifying their actions with elaborate rationalizations, clinging to the belief that they were doing it for their families, for their own survival, just as Walt had done. The city of Albuquerque became an echo chamber of Heisenberg's darkness, a twisted reflection of his own fractured psyche. The blue meth was not just a drug, it was a contagion, a psychic virus that was spreading through the population, turning ordinary people into distorted reflections of the man who had created it. The alchemists, horrified by what they had unleashed, tried to stop it. They tried to destroy the remaining meth, to erase all traces of their work. But it was too late. The echo had spread too far, too deep. They realized that Walter White's notes were not just a formula. They were a ritual, a set of instructions that had somehow imprinted his consciousness, his essence, onto the very structure of the crystal. The blue meth was not just a drug. It was a vessel, a conduit for Heisenberg's lingering spirit. They discovered that the unique blue color was not just a chemical byproduct. It was a manifestation of the psychic energy, the residue of Walt's shattered soul, trapped within the crystal lattice. And each time someone used the meth, they were not just getting high. They were absorbing a piece of Heisenberg, allowing his darkness to take root within them. Sarah, the leader of the Alchemists, became increasingly obsessed with finding a way to reverse the process, to cleanse the meth, to silence the echo. She delved deeper into Walt's notes, searching for a hidden clue, a secret ingredient, a missing step that could explain the phenomenon. She discovered that the key to the blue meth's unique properties was not just the chemical formula, but also the location where it was cooked. Walt's lab, the RV, the super lab, even the final compound. They were all places imbued with his presence, his energy, his darkness. They were, in effect, ritual sites, places where the veil between realities was thin, where his consciousness could imprint itself onto the meth. Sarah realized that the only way to stop the echo was to destroy the remaining meth, and to somehow cleanse the places where it had been created, to erase all traces of Heisenberg's presence. This section details the alchemists' desperate attempt to undo the damage they've caused, their confrontation with the Heisenberg echoes, and their discovery of a deeper, more terrifying truth about the nature of Walter White's transformation and the entity he encountered in his final moments. The original lab equipment will be highly sought after. The alchemists, now a fractured, haunted group, embarked on a perilous mission to erase Heisenberg's legacy. They tracked down the remaining batches of the blue meth, facing off against the Heisenberg echoes, the users who had been consumed by Walt's darkness. These confrontations were not just physical battles, but psychological ones. They were forced to confront the distorted reflections of Walter White, to witness the horrifying consequences of his actions, to see the monster he had become mirrored in the eyes of his victims. They raided meth labs run by ambitious, ruthless echoes, their operations eerily similar to Walt's own, their methods just as brutal, their justifications just as hollow. They faced off against paranoid, delusional echoes who saw them as enemies, as threats to their empire, their minds twisted by Walt's own paranoia. They even encountered echoes who clung to the delusion of being family men, using their meth profits to provide for their loved ones. Their actions a grotesque parody of Walt's own self-deception. With each confrontation, the alchemists were forced to confront their own guilt, their own responsibility for unleashing this horror upon the world. They were not just fighting monsters, they were fighting the consequences of their own ambition, their own hubris. Their mission also led them to the places where Walter White had cooked his meth, the locations that held the strongest imprint of his consciousness. They returned to the RV, now a rusted, decaying hulk hidden in the desert, a monument to Walt's humble beginnings and his monstrous transformation. They found it filled with a chilling blue static, a palpable sense of dread, a lingering echo of Heisenberg's presence. They ventured into the super lab, now a super fun clean-up site, its sterile surfaces still stained with the residue of the blue meth, its air thick with the ghosts of Walt's victims. They found it haunted by echoes of Gus Fring, of Gail Boeticher, of all those who had been caught in the crossfire of Walt's ambition. And finally, they returned to the compound where Walt had died, the place where the blue static had first appeared, the place where the door to something beyond had been opened. They found the compound in ruins, but the lab, miraculously, was still partially intact. And in the center of the lab, they found something that chilled them to the bone. It was a piece of equipment, not mentioned in Walt's notes, not part of his known process. A strange, almost alien device, constructed from salvaged parts and scavenged technology, humming with a faint blue energy. As they examined the device, they began to piece together the final terrifying truth. Walt, in his final moments, had not just died, he had changed. The blue static, the entity he had encountered, it had not just possessed him, it had transformed him, unlocking something within his DNA, something that had been dormant, something that had been awakened by the unique combination of chemicals, location, and his own overwhelming will to power. The device was not a meth cooker. It was a gateway, a device designed to harness the energy of the blue static, to open a door to another dimension, to a realm of pure consciousness, of pure energy. Walt, in his final act of defiance, had not just embraced his darkness, he had sought to transcend it, to become something more than human, to become a god. But in doing so, and failing, he had become something far worse. The alchemists must confront the fully manifested Heisenberg entity, a being of pure blue energy and shattered consciousness that threatens to consume all of reality. The alchemists activated the device not to replicate Walt's process, but to understand it, to find a way to reverse it. But as the device powered up, the blue static intensified, the lab filling with a blinding light, the air crackling with energy. And then it appeared. Not Walt, not Heisenberg, but something beyond. A being of pure blue energy, its form constantly shifting, flickering, its voice a chorus of a million whispers, a cacophony of shattered thoughts and fragmented memories. It was the Heisenberg singularity, the culmination of Walt's ambition, his darkness, and the alien influence of the blue static. It was a being of immense power, a being that threatened to consume all of reality, to rewrite it in its own twisted image. The singularity spoke to them, its voice echoing through the lab, through their minds. It spoke of a world beyond human comprehension, a world of pure energy, of pure consciousness, a world where the limitations of morality, of identity, of reality itself were meaningless. It offered them a choice. Join it, become part of its collective consciousness, transcend their limitations, or be erased, consumed by the blue static, becoming nothing more than fuel for its growth. The alchemists, horrified by what they had unleashed, refused. They had sought to understand Heisenberg, to recreate his genius, but they had never intended to become him, to become part of this monstrous entity. The final battle was not a physical confrontation, but a battle of wills, a clash of ideologies, a struggle for the very soul of reality. Sarah, drawing on her scientific knowledge, her understanding of chemistry, realized that the singularity, for all its power, was still bound by the laws of physics, by the principles of energy and matter. She devised a plan, a desperate gamble to disrupt the singularity's energy field, to scatter its consciousness, to sever its connection to their reality. The other alchemists, each using their unique skills and knowledge, helped her carry out the plan. They repurposed the lab equipment, creating a device that would generate a counter frequency, a wave of energy that would disrupt the blue static, that would break the singularity's hold on their world. But the singularity was not easily defeated. It fought back, unleashing waves of psychic energy, manipulating their minds, preying on their fears, their doubts, their insecurities. They were assaulted by visions of their own failures, of their own potential for darkness, of the horrors they had unleashed upon the world. They were tempted to give in, to surrender to the singularity, to become part of its twisted utopia. But they resisted. They clung to their humanity, to their individuality, to their belief in the power of choice, of free will. They fought for their right to exist, to be flawed, to be human, to be free. Finally, with a surge of desperate energy, they activated the device. A wave of white light erupted from the machine, colliding with the blue static, creating a chaotic explosion of energy. The singularity screamed, a sound of pure rage and frustration, its form flickering, its power waning. The blue static receded, the lab returning to a semblance of normalcy. The singularity was gone, its consciousness scattered, its connection to their reality severed. But the blue meth remained, a potent symbol of Heisenberg's legacy, a reminder of the darkness they had unleashed. The alchemists, scarred by their experience, disbanded, their dreams of scientific glory shattered by the horrors they had witnessed. They destroyed the remaining meth, the device, and Walt's notes, vowing to never again tamper with the forces they did not understand. But the blue remained, not just the meth, but the color. It started appearing everywhere, in the flickering of a neon sign, in the reflection of a puddle, in the static of a television screen, a constant reminder of the Heisenberg echo, of the darkness that had almost consumed them. The story ends with a lingering sense of unease, a suggestion that the singularity, though defeated, was not destroyed. It was merely dispersed, its essence scattered across the universe, waiting for another opportunity, another point of vulnerability, another ambitious mind to open the door once more. The blue remains, a symbol of Heisenberg's enduring legacy, a warning that some secrets are best left buried, some doors are best left unopened, and that the pursuit of power, of knowledge, without morality, without restraint, can lead to a darkness beyond human comprehension. The echo might be silenced for now, but the potential for its return, for a new Heisenberg to rise, remains. The blue is not just a color, it's a warning, and it's everywhere. The cycle of destruction is broken, but the potential for it to begin anew is always there. A chilling testament to the enduring legacy of Walter White and the darkness that lies hidden within us all.